This is every single fight to make next after UFC 314, Volkanovski versus Lopez. I've got all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where the next opponent's going to go, who I've hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal their opponents one by one and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with Alexander Volkanovski is the champ. Alexander Volkanovski in 2025 is the featherweight world champion again, and he's probably going to go on another run here, in my opinion. And that run should start with Movsar Evloev. You don't need Evloev to go through anything else. That's the main point I'm trying to make here. Evloev has earned a title shot. Now that Lopez has lost to Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria has left the division and Max Holloway has said that his future is at lightweight, you can remove Holloway from the rankings, remove Ilia Topuria as the champion at the top of it, Volk's going to be champ, and now Evloev is going to be the number one contender in the featherweight division. Holloway is not going to be in the rankings anymore, so Lopez is going to be sitting at number 2 and Evloev is going to be sitting at number 1. You've got to give Evloev the title shot. He's the number one contender. He's undefeated. He's on a crazy win streak. They were trying to offer him Aaron Pico, I guess, were the rumors. I don't know of any other name in the rankings that I would put against Evloev other than like give Evloev Gene Silva and see if he can earn a title shot if he wins that one. Fair is fair. You've got to give Evloev a title shot against Volkanovski. Would I be campaigning for this so hard under the disguise of justice for Evloev if I didn't think that Volkanovski was going to beat him? Maybe not. But I think Volk's going to beat Evloev. I think you have to have high finishing potential to defeat Alexander Volkanovski. And Lopez had that high finishing potential. And that's why I picked him to win. Plus, Volk, 2 KO losses back to back. Long time out of the cage. But now he's back and he's got momentum again. And he's looking the same old Volk. Maybe not quite what we saw in the Holloway trilogy, but this wasn't Holloway. This was Diego Lopez, so it's a different style matchup. I think Volk didn't look like he really skipped a beat. I think he beats Evloev. I reckon this was the moment. Like, okay, if he gets past Lopez after all of this, time off, KO losses, all of the doubt that might be going through his head, if he were to get through this moment, I reckon he's going to go on another run at featherweight. I don't know how much longer he should go on for. He could retire now. He's the featherweight GOAT, undeniably. Became the 2-time champ. He's just adding to his legacy. Lopez is an amazing win to have on his resume. And I think Evloev is another win that he could get. I don't know what he's going to do after that, though. Maybe he's already beaten Yair Rodriguez. This is the problem with Volk. He's beaten so many of the guys in the featherweight division. Like Ortega's hogging up a top spot in the featherweight rankings. Yair Rodriguez is hogging up a top spot at the featherweight rankings. So maybe if Gene Silva stays incredibly active, and I'll put a matchup for him in this video as well, as you can see down here, then maybe Gene Silva can make it to the top in time to where after Volkanovski versus Evloev, he can take on the next generation of absolute dangerous super fighter that is Gene Silva. And if he does that, then he might go down as one of the greatest of all times. He's already like top 3. I don't know. If we're including roid cheats, Jones number 1, Makhachev's way up there. His win over Volk is aging really well. And I'm starting to run out of arguments to put some of these older GOATs like the Anderson Silvas and Demetrius Johnsons, although I have a lot of respect for these guys. I'm struggling to put these guys, when you look at the list of Volk's wins, now adding Diego Lopez to it, and if he does go on and beat Evloev as well, we're talking about one of the GOATs of the sport. He's now in that conversation. I think Volkanovski would beat Evloev. I think this is the matchup to make. September's going to be a Mexico pay-per-view. I don't know if this would fit a Mexico pay-per-view main event. Maybe this would fit in an August main event if Volkanovski wants to stay active. I know he said that he wants to get 3 fights in this year, but he had a lot of damage on his face. His eyes were swollen up. I know he said his hands were really hurting after hitting Lopez in the face in that fight. So maybe he's going to need some time off. But I think Volkanovski's going to be okay. Maybe he'll be back in August. If not, he'll be back in October. I reckon they're going to go to Abu Dhabi in October. Umar Nurmagomedov said that he wanted to fight Yan on the Abu Dhabi pay-per-view in October. So he kind of leaked that there was going to be another Abu Dhabi pay-per-view then. And if Volk wants to fight Evloev on that card, it's the right candidate for him in Movsar Evloev. You know what I mean? They're going to want to put Evloev on that Abu Dhabi card. I don't know. That's what I see happening. If Volk wants to stay active, do this in August. If he wants to have a little bit of time to enjoy what he's just accomplished and defied all the odds and pulled it off, then maybe you should go out there in October. But there is something to consider with the fact that Volkanovski is still old. And does he want to be like, okay, I've still got it, so let me make the most out of still having it right now. You know what I mean? I'm still got it. I proved it to myself. Now let me stay active and rattle off a couple of wins. To be honest with you, you might just want to beat Evloev and dip. So who knows what he's going to do. But Volkanovski wins, and I think he should be fighting Evloev next. There's nothing more for Evloev to do to get a title shot. Nothing more for him to do. He's going to be number 1 ranked. Diego Lopes, the loser of the main event. I had him by second round TKO. He dropped Volk in the second, but Volk still got it, and his chin is still there, unfortunately for Lopez. Diego Lopes loses. He took damage, but it's not like he got slept. You know, it's not like his chin was in question and now he's going to need to take 6 months off. 5 months from now is that Guadalajara, Mexico pay-per-view card. And Yair Rodriguez won against Patricio Pitbull. You've got to book this. The stars have aligned, to be honest with you. Diego Lopes, Yair Rodriguez, that's now one of the more compelling matchups. Everyone's going to know who Lopez is. He's a dog. You know, he lost a fight, but he still got respect because he was pushing in the 5th round, and he had a good end to the 4th round and a good end to the 2nd round as well, where he dropped Volk. Lost the fight clearly and did take a lot of damage. His eye was swollen up really badly. But he's not going to have to take 6 months off. Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez, book it for the September card in Mexico. Maybe you could have Volkanovski and Evloev headline that card. I don't know what else would. So maybe that would be okay to do. Just so you have like another featherweight matchup on the card for some kind of relevancy. Because otherwise I think they're just going to do a Brandon Moreno fight. There's no Mexican champ. They're not going to put Bilal Muhammad as the main event of that Mexico pay-per-view. They're not going to put John Jones as the main event of that versus Tom Aspinall. They're not going to do Ilia Topuria. He speaks Spanish, though. Maybe, but he's not. I don't think he's fighting Makhachev next. So that's not going to be a title fight at the top of the bill. So if there is going to be a title fight on top of that card, it might actually have to be Volkanovski versus Evloev. So maybe they will be headlining in September. But in the co-main event, because of the pay-per-view press conference of UFC 314, where these two just spurred this massive amount of beef between each other and revealed it to the world that there's this massive grudge match waiting to happen. Now you've got to capitalize and do Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez. Otherwise, if they didn't have any beef and there wasn't any relevancy to this, I would be saying, Yair versus Gene Silva, that's what we need to see. Or Yair versus Lerone Murphy. One of these matchups. But now we got to see Lopez versus Rodriguez. Moving on to the co-main event, the winner, Paddy Pimblett, lad. Hey, Chandler needs to stop bleeding, lad. Paddy Pimblett wins. I don't know what to do at lightweight. This took me a while. I don't know what to do. I was thinking maybe Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria, but then I'm thinking, well, Chandler's number 7 ranked at lightweight. So if Pimblett beats him, he's now going to be number 7 or 6 in the rankings. That's not what Ilia's going to want. You know, Ilia's not going to look, I'm going to make my big lightweight debut against number 7 in the rankings. That might not even get him a title shot. So I think Ilia needs to cancel out someone who's nearly earning of a title shot at the top of the lightweight division in Charles Oliveira or Arman Tsarukyan. Those are the only options for Ilia Topuria. And I think it's Charles Oliveira. I think a Spanish broadcasting team leaked that fight was going to happen anyway. So I think they're doing Oliveira versus Topuria. I don't see Arman versus Paddy Pimblett happening. So I reckon they're going to do Arman Tsarukyan versus Justin Gaethje, because the winner of that will be in line for some kind of title shot as well. I was thinking maybe Paddy Pimblett versus Max Holloway, but I don't see that happening either. I think Poirier has to get the Pimblett fight. I think Dustin Poirier needs to get the Pimblett fight. It's not the highest ranks out of all of the names that I just said, but I think Poirier is going to have to take it. I know that Poirier is playing this game of, I need a legend in my retirement fight. And unfortunately for Poirier, all the legends right now have got some kind of momentum at the top of lightweight in Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. It's just kind of counterproductive to the order of the lightweight division to book one of those names against Dustin Poirier. So I reckon they should do Paddy Pimblett versus Dustin Poirier. I was thinking maybe a Paddy Pimblett, Dan Hooker, but I think Dan Hooker's going to want to be fighting soon. So I think they should do Dan Hooker versus Max Holloway, 5-round co-main event of one of these pay-per-views coming up in June or July. Then they should do Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria for a title shot, Arman Tsarukyan versus Justin Gaethje towards the end of the year, and Paddy Pimblett versus Dustin Poirier. Poirier's the odd name out. You can't do Dustin Poirier versus Arman. That's not going to be a fight that Poirier's all too interested by. He wants one fight. That's all he wants left. One fight left in his career. You can't do Poirier-Ilia Topuria because then it leaves too many candidates at the top for a title shot, and we're just going to get Makhachev-Oliveira too, which isn't bad, but I think Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira is the fight to make. You don't do Oliveira-Poirier 2. You don't do Gaethje versus Poirier 3 at this point, and I don't think Gaethje even wants that anyway, because he knows that if he beats an Arman Tsarukyan or a Charles Oliveira in a rematch, or beats an Ilia Topuria, a title shot is being given to him for that, because that's going to be a huge win for him, and he can get back towards the title. So you've got all of these names that have their eyes set on a title, and are trying to get back to the lightweight championship, and Dustin Poirier isn't. So he needs to be put against Paddy Pimblett, I think. I reckon Paddy Pimblett versus Dustin Poirier is the matchup. I know it's not the best for Poirier. I know he wanted a huge name and he wanted a legacy matchup. But I think this is a great name for Poirier. This is a super fight. You can incentivize him with a bit more money for it because Pimblett's going to sell that fight. Pimblett's now a huge name in the UFC. One of the biggest names in the UFC. I've seen the highlight videos of his fight and the numbers they've been getting online. He's trending like crazy because I think with Pimblett, there were people worried to invest. Okay, we like Pimblett. He's a superstar. He's a fun fighter to watch. But we don't want to jump on board because there might not be that belief that he's actually going to go on and become a champion. After that Michael Chandler performance, there is a belief in that. Like, maybe Pimblett could become, okay, maybe he doesn't beat Makhachev or who knows. But now it's who knows if he can beat the Oliveiras and the Gaethjes and the Armans. So I think people are more likely to jump on board now after that Michael Chandler performance. So I think Paddy Pimblett, Dustin Poirier is the fight to make. I might be corrected on that by a lot of people, but I don't know what else. You do Pimblett versus Oliveira. All right, well, Pimblett's probably going to be out for 5 months. You know? He's probably going to be back in September or October on the Abu Dhabi card. I don't think Pimblett's going to make a 3-4 month turnaround here. I just don't see that happening. And I don't want to wait until, even if it is a 3-4 month turnaround, I don't want to be waiting until August to see Oliveira again. That's a long time, and he hasn't fought recently either. Justin Gaethje, maybe, but I think he's going to want the Arman fight. He's going to want something that's going to get him towards a title shot. He's not going to look down in the rankings. He just did that with the Fiziev fight. So I reckon they got to do Paddy Pimblett versus Dustin Poirier. Even Ilia Topuria, I'm not trying to wait till August or September. Poirier said he's waiting till August. You know, Louisiana main event, that's the date. In August, September-ish, around that time for a fight night card. That makes sense for Pimblett, I think. Everyone else is going to be looking to book a fight over June, July, or early August. And I don't see Pimblett making a return that soon. So I reckon this is the matchup. Paddy Pimblett, Dustin Poirier. And if he needs to win a fight after that as well, who knows? But there's such a logjam at the top of lightweight right now. Poirier is kind of the last man standing that needs to be taken on the up-and-comer, unfortunately for Poirier. Even though he wants a huge name, I think it's kind of like he would create a lot of hold-up in the lightweight division to do that. There's like this natural order of things that need to go a certain way with Dan Hooker, Max Holloway, Arman versus Gaethje, Oliveira Topuria. And Poirier's name just isn't included in that because otherwise it messes up subsequently all of the other matchups. So I reckon that's the matchup they should do. Moving on to the loser of the co-main event, Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler lost. He lost brutally. He owes the lightweight division blood. He owes the lightweight division something. For SEM, on the come up, on a win streak, Chandler owes his due. He does. He's never done this yet. He comes in, he gets Dan Hooker. Title shot against Charles Oliveira. At a time where Tony Ferguson had just recently been on a 12-fight win streak and not got a title shot yet. I know he pulled out of a few of them, and his opponents have pulled out of a few fights as well. But still, Chandler comes in, beats Dan Hooker, gets a title shot. Loses the title shot to Charles Oliveira. Who did he fight next? Justin Gaethje, I believe it was. Was that the order of things? Fights Justin Gaethje. Loses. All right, it was a fun fight. Gets Tony Ferguson. Wins. Dustin Poirier. Loses. It's just, how many more favors is he going to get? Charles Oliveira rematch. That made no sense. That made 0 sense for Chandler to get. But he gets right back into those massive opportunities where he gets a rematch against Charles Oliveira after being promised Conor McGregor. Oh, the Conor McGregor fight didn't materialize, Chandler. Sorry. Sorry about that, Chandler. You didn't get yet another super fight in a row. You're 1-5 now in your last 6. You fought Pimblett. That was still a superstar name for you. You got fucked up. You got destroyed more than any other lightweight has destroyed you yet in your career. If you want to stick around in the UFC, there's no more. Because the thing is, I can see them booking like a Dan Hooker rematch for him. You know, for some reason, I can see some bullshit like that. Or who wants to see Holloway versus Chandler? Just anything to keep him in these huge fights. He got destroyed so badly. No. You owe the lightweight division what Poirier did when he fought Benoit Saint-Denis. What Justin Gaethje did when he first fought Rafael Fiziev. You owe them that. That's what happens when you lose enough fights. I think Veresiam deserves a shot in the rankings, and I think Chandler should be the one to welcome into them, because now I think Chandler's probably going to be ranked around 8 or 9 in the division. So, do Chandler versus Ziam. That's what I think needs to happen. John Silva. It's okay. John Silva's really exciting, man. Nasty finisher. Another highlight reel over Bryce Mitchell. He's going to have a ton of star power after this. Massive highlight reel already in his career. So he's just adding to it. I think John Silva, I was looking through the matchups. Listen, if Lopez would have beat Volk, I'd say, okay, Volk retire. Rodriguez versus John Silva is the matchup to make. I thought that'd be a no-brainer. I think you do John Silva versus Lerone Murphy. Fuck Brian Ortega, man. Like, stop relying on Ortega. He's another one of these Chandler types that just seems to get all of these massive matchups in the division for himself. No. Just stop. We're not waiting for Brian Ortega. We're moving on. Lerone Murphy, John Silva, main event of a fight night card. Put all the spotlight on them. 5-rounder. And also, as much as I hate to say this, the fact is Lerone Murphy is a problem in the featherweight division. And I mean that in 2 ways. One, he's good, and he could go on to become something in the featherweight division. But the second way that he's a problem is you've got a division with Volkanovski and Evloev. Evloev's, not the most exciting, but it's interesting to watch. You got Yair Rodriguez, Diego Lopez, Gene Silva on the come up. You got all of these names on the come up. Not on the come up or on the re-come up. You know what I'm saying? Lerone Murphy's really boring to watch. He doesn't get highlights. He's not all that promotable either. He is, but they don't do that. He's got a crazy story. He survived getting shot in the face, I'm pretty sure. So, and that's why he's called the Miracle. So there is promo for him, but the UFC just isn't pushing that message out there for whatever reason. Let Gene kill him. Yeah, I'm just being real. Let Gene dispose of him. And then we have Gene Silva in that position, looking for one of these top contenders to get his title shot from. That's how you expedite the Gene Silva process, to get him towards a championship fight, to where he can keep on the schedule if Volkanovski decides to be active against Movsar Evloev. So do Gene Silva versus Lerone Murphy. Fight night main event. Huge fight. And also, if Lerone Murphy wins this one, even if he wins by boring decision this time, you have to respect it, because Gene Silva's one of the most terrifying prospects in the sport right now. Does whatever he fucking wants, it feels like. I'm heartbroken. We'll get to Bryce in a second. Okay? But Gene Silva versus Lerone Murphy, I think, is what should be done. Fight night main event. If they go to Brazil, crowded fight night main event, this could be there with a good enough undercard as well. You could put it on the main card of a pay-per-view at this point. So yeah, that's what I think they should do. Moving on to Bryce Mitchell, the loser of the feature fight. It wasn't the feature fight, but it was. Man, Bryce. I just don't think Bryce is going to be the top level of the featherweight division. He doesn't have the X factor. You know what I mean? That's the situation with Bryce. He's a good, well-rounded fighter. But when someone has that thing to him, they beat Bryce Mitchell. It could be the power of Josh Emmett, the overall just talent of Gene Silva. What was another fight that Bryce Mitchell lost in his career? Who did he lose to before? I can't even remember who Bryce Mitchell lost to before Josh Emmett. It just loses my mind right now, but I'm assuming it was someone good. But I can't for the life of me think about who it was. Oh, Ilya Topuria. He does, you know what I mean? He runs into these guys that are the next big thing. Or Emmett catches him and he took the fight on short notice and he gets slept. But, you know what I mean? It like these crazy greats, future greats, are coming across Bryce Mitchell and they're dealing with him. So I think Bryce Mitchell needs to take a step back. He needs to offer someone up a chance that's outside the rankings. Because again, even though Gene Silva got a big win here, Bryce was lower down the rankings. I think he was ranked number 13 in the division, maybe number 12. So now he's going to be floating at about 14, 15. Nathaniel Wood. England versus Germany always sells, you guys. Okay? That's a historic beef. Okay, guys? So I think England versus Germany is a hell of a promotional tool they could use here, guys. But Bryce Mitchell versus Nathaniel Wood, I think would be the matchup to make. I was going to say maybe do Bryce Mitchell versus Pitbull, or Bryce Mitchell, but he's already beaten Dan Ige, and I was thinking about other people that were on the card, and maybe they could match him up with him. But I don't see that. I don't see that for Bryce Mitchell. I think they should offer Nathaniel Wood a chance up the rankings. Steve Garcia, Edson Barboza, I think that's being rebooked, if I'm not mistaken. I know Giga Chikadze's fighting David Onama. I don't know why David Onama got a jump up. He's way below so many fighters that are below in the rankings. I could see a Bryce Mitchell versus a Pat Sabatini in the featherweight division, but I think Nathaniel Wood's earned it. The only fight he's lost at featherweight was to Mohamed Naimov, who just cheated his way through the fight about 5 or 7 times. I'm not even joking. He cheated so much, the ref just let him do it. Cage grabs, eye pokes, groin shots, more cage grabs. All sorts he was doing. Glove grabs. So much he was doing to stay alive in that fight. To barely win over Nathaniel Wood. Other than that, Nathaniel Wood's put together, I think, like 5 wins in the featherweight division. And he's now back on a win streak again. I think you do Bryce Mitchell versus Nathaniel Wood. That's the matchup I want to see. And I think that'd be a good one. We move on. Dominic Reyes. Beat Nikita Krylov. Generational win from Dominic Reyes. Amazing win. He's back on track. Okay? Vintage Reyes. Book him against Alexander Rakic. I was going to say maybe do the Jan Blachowicz rematch, but if there is a chance at a fresh matchup, I think you should always capitalize on that chance to make the fresh matchup instead of doing anything else. You know what I mean? So Dominic Reyes versus Alexander Rakic. Rakic, I believe, is ranked number 6 in the division. Dominic Reyes is, I think, at the moment number 12 or 11. He's probably going to move up to number 9 or 8 in the rankings. Give him Alexander Rakic, and if he wins that one, he can start looking at title elimination bouts in the division. Maybe a loser. Maybe if Pereira loses to Ankalaev in the rematch, they can book Dominic Reyes versus Pereira if he were to get past Alexander Rakic. So I think that's the most logical matchup to make next in the light heavyweight division. Dominic Reyes versus Alexander Rakic. Also to make, Dan Ige, early bullshit stoppage against Sean Woodson, but he was probably going to win anyway. Judges had him up 2-0 on the scorecard, so he was going to win that fight. I reckon you do Dan Ige versus Aaron Pico. Dan Ige versus Aaron Pico. You know why? Aaron Pico was on the post-fight press or the pre-fight press conference of UFC 314 answering questions. So they clearly want to give him a big name. Rumors of him versus Evloev. They definitely want to give Pico the push. Okay? So I reckon they should do Dan Ige versus Pico. I can't think of any other reason for it, though, other than the fact of they're going to give Aaron Pico a ranked fight at featherweight to make his debut against, because they like letting the Bellator guys sink or swim, I feel like. That seems to be the trend with them. If you're from another promotion and, oh, you're hot shit from another promotion, right in at the deep end, sink or swim. You know what I mean? So they can get you in. I think it's their way of signing these guys for less money. I really think that's what it is. They don't want to pay out and beat their money that they were, beat their salary that they were on from another promotion. So instead what they do is, okay, we're not going to give you that much. We're going to give you less. We're going to give you UFC pay. So it's a little less than you were earning as the big name on that other show, because you're not a big name to us. But to incentivize you to actually take it, you'll get right in the top 10 if you win. You'll get right on a pay-per-view main card if you get this. You know what I mean? So I think they'll do Dan Ige, Aaron Pico. Another reason why, I just think Dan Ige will take the fight. That's Dan Ige. Is that not Dan Ige? He will take the fight against Aaron Pico. If they offer him Aaron Pico, he'll say, yeah, sure. Big name. Prospect coming into the UFC, I'll fight him. Dan Ige is that guy at featherweight. If you need a fight taken, Ige's going to take it. So that's what I think should happen. Poor Virna Jandiroba. She won a fight against Yan Xiaonan. Christ. Give her a title shot against Zhang Weili. Simple as. Title shot against Zhang Weili. She's earned it. Yan Xiaonan was the #1 contender. Jandiroba's on a win streak. I think she lost to Tatiana Suarez a while ago, if I'm not mistaken. So I do think that Zhang Weili would beat her, but I think this would be a very credible win for Zhang to have on her resume. And then after that, maybe we can start looking towards the flyweight title and finally getting some kind of super fight again between two champions in the division. I feel like we've gone away from super fights. I know they're supposed to be a rare thing, but there's a lot of them right now that I think should be happening, like Merab Pantoja, and even, we're getting closer with some of these other champs. If Dricus gets past Chimaev and Pereira gets back the belt against Ankalaev, and let's say Yuri beats Allberg, we should do DDP versus Pereira. We've got a few of them that could be on the horizon. So I think if Zhang Weili wins this one, we can start looking at her moving up and fighting for the Flyweight World Championship. So there you go. That's all the fights to make. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.